Have you ever closed a browser tab, opened it again a few hours later, and found yourself still logged into the website you were reading? You didn't re-enter your username. You didn't re-enter your password. The site simply remembered you, the way a familiar shopkeeper might recognize a regular customer without needing to check any records. It felt seamless and unremarkable, and you probably moved on without giving it a second thought. That small, comfortable experience of being remembered is one of the most consequential pieces of technology in the history of the Internet. It is also the same mechanism that allows a pair of shoes you looked at for 30 seconds on one website to follow you across news articles, social media feeds, and video platforms for the next 3 weeks. The thing that makes the web feel like it knows you is the same thing that allows the web to sell what it knows about you. And it fits in a text file smaller than this paragraph. Every Internet user in the world encounters this technology dozens of times a day. The banner that appears at the top of almost every website you visit, asking whether you accept cookies, is now so ubiquitous that most people dismiss it in under a second without reading a word. Research consistently suggests that the overwhelming majority of users click accept on these prompts immediately. Almost none of them know what they have just agreed to. But here's the surprising truth. The technology behind that banner was invented by a single programmer over a single weekend in 1994 for a purpose so practical and so limited that it had nothing whatsoever to do with advertising, tracking, or data collection. The gap between what cookies were designed to do and what they became is one of the more instructive stories in the history of technology. And understanding it changes what that banner means the next time it appears in front of you. Today, we're unpacking what a browser cookie actually is, why the early web made it necessary, and how a solution to a mundane problem with online shopping quietly became the infrastructure of a global data economy. To understand why cookies had to be invented, you have to understand a specific and deeply inconvenient property of the early World Wide Web. In the protocol that governs how browsers and web servers communicate, every request for a page is treated as entirely independent of every other request. A server receives a request, delivers the page, and immediately forgets the exchange happened. The next request from the same browser, arriving a fraction of a second later, is treated as if it came from a complete stranger. This is called a stateless protocol, and it was a deliberate design choice made in the interest of simplicity and scalability. It worked beautifully for a web that was primarily a system for sharing static documents. It became a serious problem the moment anyone tried to build anything interactive on top of it. The specific problem that forced the issue was a shopping cart. In the early 1990s, a company called MCI was building one of the first commercial online stores and needed a website that could remember what a user had selected as they moved from page to page. Under the stateless protocol, this was impossible. Each click on a new product page produced a fresh request that carried no memory of the previous one. Items placed in the cart on one page vanished the moment the user navigated to another. The web had no memory, and without memory, commerce was impossible. A programmer named Lou Montulli, then in his early 20s and working at the Netscape Corporation, was asked to solve the problem. He drew on a concept from earlier computing called a magic cookie, a small piece of data passed between programs as a token of context, and adapted it to the web. His solution was straightforward in principle. When a user visited a website, the server would send a small text file to the browser alongside the page. The browser would store that file and automatically attach it to every subsequent request made to the same server. The server could write anything it needed into that file: a session identifier, a preference setting, the contents of a shopping cart, and retrieve it intact on the next request. The web's amnesia was cured. Montuli's cookie specification was built into Netscape's browser and released without fanfare. The mechanism worked. Commerce became possible, and for the first few years of its existence, the cookie was exactly what it was designed to be, a small functional memory aid. Think of it like a cloakroom token at a theater. The token carries no personal information whatsoever. It is simply a number that connects you to your coat for the duration of the performance. The cloakroom attendant doesn't know your name, your address, or anything about you. They just know that the person presenting token 412 is entitled to the gray coat on hook 412. First-party cookies work on exactly this principle. The site you are visiting issues the token, reads the token, and uses it only to maintain continuity across your session. They are the mechanism behind remembered logins, saved preferences, and persistent shopping carts. They are the reason the Internet feels like a coherent experience rather than a series of disconnected amnesiac pages. So, if first-party cookies are essentially harmless session tokens, why does clicking accept all on a cookie banner carry any meaningful consequence? The answer, as is often the case in history, comes down to what other parties realized they could do with the same mechanism once it existed. The web page is rarely served from a single source. The article you are reading might be written by one publisher, but embedded within its code are requests to external servers for advertising images, social media widgets, analytics scripts, and tracking pixels, each one operated by a completely different company. Each of those external servers can issue its own cookie to your browser under the same mechanism Montuli built. These are called third-party cookies, and their function is fundamentally different from the session token that keeps you logged in, because the same advertiser's code is embedded across thousands of different websites. The cookie they issue to your browser allows them to observe your behavior across all of those sites simultaneously. Every article you read, every product you view, every search term you enter on any page that carries their code becomes a data point in a profile associated with your browser. That profile is then made available in automated auctions conducted in milliseconds to advertisers willing to pay to reach someone with your observed characteristics. The system was not designed this way. It evolved this way incrementally as the advertising industry recognized that the cookie mechanism created an opportunity to observe user behavior at a scale that had never previously been possible. By the time most users became aware it was happening, the infrastructure was already embedded in the architecture of almost every commercial website on the Internet. The cookie banner exists because European privacy legislation in the 2010s required that users be informed of this tracking and given the option to refuse it. The Accept All button and the Reject Non-Essential button lead to meaningfully different outcomes. One opens your browser history to a network of data brokers. The other closes it, while leaving the functional first-party cookies that keep the site working entirely intact. So, the next time that banner slides up from the bottom of a page you were trying to read, you'll know what the choice actually represents. A programmer solved a shopping cart problem on a weekend in 1994. The solution was a text file smaller than a short email. 3 decades later, that text file is the foundation of an advertising economy worth hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and the button you press in the first second of visiting a website determines how much of it you are feeding. The original cookie just wanted to remember your coat. Everything built on top of it wanted to remember everything else.